Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of Educational Podcasting Today. My name is Jeff Bradbury, and I am an educational podcaster. Welcome to the show today. I am excited to be here. I am excited to be back and broadcasting live in 2018. It has been a great year so far. There's been a lot of great things happening here in the world of TeacherCast. I'm happy to catch everybody up and see what's been going on. Of course, everybody knows that this is the podcast for educational podcasters. If you have an educational podcast, this show is here for you. Tonight, we're going to be talking all about why. Why did you start your own podcast? We're going to be going over 3 reasons why you might be interested in creating a podcast. Maybe you're interested in doing it in a studio. Maybe you want to go and podcast with your students. We are going to hit all of those topics today. But before we get to that, I wanted to give you guys a quick overview of what's been going on. Many of you guys know for the last 5 months, we've been redesigning the TeacherCast Educational Network. And I have to say, it looks amazing. I want to say thank you to everybody out there who's had a chance to check it out. Complete overhaul. We are no longer on our own. We decided to team up with a great company called Podcast Websites. You can find more about them over at teachercast.net/PW. And essentially, Podcast Websites is a complete solution for anybody out there looking to have a simple, easy websites without needing to learn all the hassle that is hosting, audio hosting, analytics, services. They have a complete package. I had a chance to meet the guys at Podcast Websites a few years ago and was very interested in what they were doing. But honestly, 3 years ago, I was not ready to make that switch. 2 years ago went by. We met up again. 1 year ago went by. We met up again. Finally, this year, we met at MapCon, the Mid-Atlantic Podcast Convention I've been speaking at over the last couple years. We had a chance to sit down. I said, here's what we want to do. Here's where I'd like to see TeacherCast. And they reached out and said, we can do this together. We can help you create the TeacherCast of your dreams, and we can help you create the TeacherCast for your audience. And that's exactly what we did. Over the course of 4 months, we looked at it, we designed it, we put it together. I am thrilled to share it with you right now. There's a lot of different sections. Essentially, when we put it together, we came up with 3 legs to stand on: instructional technology, STEM education, and leadership. In there, we decided to create some landing sections, and this show happens to fall under educational instructional technology. And if you click on over to educationalpodcasting.today, you're going to find all of the information that we've been putting up. You can learn how to create your podcast, how to make your show notes, how to choose the right equipment, and on the flip side of that, how to create your website. We've got posts on plugins, on themes, on hosting, on anything that you're looking for. And now that we have a fantastic new website, we're able to put out a lot more content in a much quicker time. So I urge you guys, check out the new teachercast.net, and of course, check out the section here on educationalpodcasting.today. Everything that you need is going to be in one spot, including me. A lot of people are asking, how do I learn how to make a podcast? Today, we're going to talk all about the reasons why, but we've opened up a coaching session. Many of you guys have asked, how do I do this? Where do I go? If you head on over to educationalpodcasting.today, you can do a few things. Number one, you can book a free time with me. I'll give you a half an hour of my time, and we will sit down, talk about your needs, figure out what's going on. You'll have a chance to ask some questions. I want to help you create your show. You might be sitting here going, but okay, I'm not ready yet for a podcast, but I want to get my website in order. Guess what? I'll help you out with that too. I'm offering free podcast coaching, free website coaching for the next, I'm going to say a few months here, just so we can get some stuff taken care of. So check on over there. One of the other things that we have to offer over at educationalpodcasting.today is a brand new private Facebook group. Now, this is just for our users that are really, really looking to join a community and really build a sense of, a sense of family here, right? Like, we're all in this together, right? Nobody has the right answer. And of course, we always say that the most important thing about professional learning is the smartest person is the room itself. So we've created a private Facebook group. You can go over to educationalpodcasting.tips. Educationalpodcasting.tips. It takes you right to the Facebook group. We started this group about a month or so before we relaunched the website. And right now, as we're recording it in the middle of March, we have almost 100 people. And in order to get into there, we ask a few questions to make sure that you're legit out there. And people are coming in saying, I want to learn how to podcast. I want to learn how to make digital stuff with my kids. I want a better website. I want to know where to build my website, where to build my podcast. Guys, we are here to help you out. I am here to help you create a show. I've been podcasting for the last 7 years. Wow. Let me say that again. 7 years. It seems like it was just yesterday, but I've been doing this for a long time, guys. If you're listening to me, you know I've been doing this for a long time. And with over 800 shows, somebody the other day asked me, how many guests do I think I've interviewed? Oh, goodness, it's got to be in the 2000s. If you figure that every show has 3 or 4 guests and 800 shows and all the ISTEs and all the ed camps and conventions, it's got to be more than 2,000 people. I want to help and share my knowledge with you guys. Check it out over on educationalpodcasting.today. I hope you join the family. I hope you join the crew here. There's certainly a lot of things to do here. Now, the first question that might be on your mind is why, Jeff? Why do I want to start my own podcast, right? I've heard of these things. I listen to them. Is it difficult? Is it free? Is it cost anything? What do I need? And all of those questions is exactly why this podcast exists. You see, we originally created the Educational Podcasting Today podcast, the one you're listening to right now, to help answer the question, can I do this for free? Can I do this without a lot of money? What does it take to actually put this thing together, right? And so you might have noticed over the last few weeks, we've been putting up all of our back catalog. When we relaunched TeacherCast, we had over 1,000 blog posts and podcasts combined to put together. So you might be recently looking at your local podcast and going, why is Jeff putting out shows from 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18? Well, it takes a long time when you're working by yourself to put these things out. But it's important content to put out there. So let's take a look at you, right? I want to ask you this question. Why do you want to start your own podcast, right? Why do you want to start your own podcast? Whenever somebody asks me, how do they do it? My response to them is always, well, why do you want to? I've come up with a lot of reasons, right? Like, I started podcasting 7 years ago because one day I was listening to a show and the host of this show had put out a survey, a contest, if you will, and said, if you can answer this question, I will give you a $50 iTunes card. And at the time, I said, sounds like a fun thing to do. So I emailed the guy, I answered the right question, and he wrote me back and said, hey, this is kind of cool. No one's written me yet. Long and behold, I got the $50 iTunes card. But more importantly, he and I became friends. We decided that we were then going to take that friendship and decide to launch a new show. We, at the time, called it Apple Aid. 2 guys talking about our Macs, right? And the whole idea was to help people learn how to use technology. And one day I said to him, you know what? I love this concept. I love talking Macs, but I really want to do this in a way that I can help out teachers, right? I'm a teacher. I have people asking questions. I want to know how to do this to help out teachers, to help their students. And that was the day I was fired from the show. And looking back, it was the best professional thing that anyone's ever done to me. Essentially, it was Mama Bird pushing me off that windshield. Let me say that again. Pushing me off that tree branch and saying, go figure this out yourself. He had given me the foundation, and I started to podcast because I wanted to create a medium for which I could bring on other educators to talk about how they did things in their classrooms. So hopefully, maybe out there listening, you heard it and got inspired. And that's why on July 11th, 2011, I started TeacherCast. And a few weeks or so later, we had the first TeacherCast podcast. Now, I'm kind of running down memory lane here because over the last couple months in relaunching TeacherCast, I had to go back and find all those shows and remaster the audio. And all of that stuff now is back up on TeacherCast with more complete show notes than ever before. So I got involved in podcasting because I wanted to help out my community. I wanted to teach, right? I wanted to share my passions for teaching and learning with you, with the audience out there, in hopes that maybe you could take your passions and share it with your students. You see, I have this wacky idea here where if your podcast can reach a teacher, you're helping 30 students, maybe 100 students, right? If your podcast can reach an administrator, maybe you're helping 400 students, 600 students, right? If your podcast can reach a superintendent, well, maybe you're reaching 3,000 students, 5,000 students. You never know by looking at those analytics what that 1, 2, 3 downloads, what the trickle-down effect is on there. So the first reason I always say to start your own podcast is to share your passions with others. What do you like? When people say, well, what topic should I podcast on? I always say, what do you love more than anything else? What's the one thing that's going to keep you going? Would you believe that the average show on iTunes has about 8 to 10 episodes? And you're like, what? 8 to 10? Yeah, because many people do what's called pod fading. They decide they want to do a show. They might invest $1,000 on microphones and mixers and computers, and then they do it, and you realize, and lean in on this one, podcasting is difficult, right? To get into this, you got to be crazy. But to do it long term, to do it for 20 episodes, 50 episodes, it takes more than just one person, right? And first of all, let's be honest here, guys. It takes a loving spouse, which I have, right? And going into all of this stuff, it takes longevity, right? And to figure out, again, 800 episodes later, sharing your passions. That's why at the end of this show and every one of my shows, we always say, keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students. It's so important to be passionate about the topics. Doesn't matter if it's a football podcast, if it's a comedy podcast, a podcast all about Star Wars, or in our case here, a podcast to help you create digital media with your students. That's why we create these shows. So the first thing here, the first reason to create our podcast is to share our passions with each other, with our students, and really with the world. The second thing here is about building your brand. Now, it's a little bit of a heads and tails on here, right? Like if you're sharing your passions, are you really out to build your brand? I got to tell you, in 2011, I was not looking to build a brand. I just happened to have a catchy name and this drive to do something. And look, it was July, right? What else are you going to do over the summertime? Let's start a podcast, right? And nowadays we talk in brands, right? Because you have your avatar, your Twitter account, your Facebook, your Pinterest. Everyone's trying to follow and subscribe and like and all of that crud. But by having a podcast, it's one more avenue for you to share your story, for you to get your message out, for you to build an audience for you. What is your brand? I'll give you a hint. Your brand should follow your passions, right? If you're passionate about helping people, your brand will succeed if it's following your passions. Now, I'm going to give you a couple good examples here. Our co-host on the Tech Educator podcast, our partner in crime here, the one and only Sam Patterson, he has a podcast called Beyond the Hour of Code. You can go to beyondthehourofcode.com. He's passionate about teaching people about STEM education. So passionate that he wrote a book on it. So passionate that he always does his EduPuppet. So passionate that he's out there in California making it happen with all the robot companies. Those passions are helping him to build his brand. And that's important to him because that provides more opportunities, speaking opportunities, book deal opportunities, podcasting opportunities, the ability to do these great things. Those passions are helping Sam to build his brand. So if you are out there saying, well, I've got a message, I've got a business, I've got a something, maybe a podcast is something you want to look into. Now, I'm not going to say everybody needs a podcast. Lord knows there's almost 700,000, if not more, podcasts on iTunes right now. Many of them have pod faded, which again means they've stopped. And it's hard to whittle through all of that content, right? So if you're going to look into doing it long term, then go for it, right? Have a good time. But if you're just doing it because that's what everyone else is doing it, maybe not for you. So the first reason to start your podcast is, again, sharing your passions. The second one is building your brand. The last thing in here still kind of goes into that passions thing, but it's to educate others, right? What are you an expert on? What are you sharing with the world? When somebody says, I'd like to learn about this, why would they turn to you? I started this particular podcast because so many of you out there have said, Jeff, I want to learn about podcasting. I want to learn how to make a website. I want to create this for myself, for my family, for my business, for my classroom. I need the right tools. And that was so loud coming back at me. That's when we decided, and this was back in 2014-15, to create a space on TeacherCast dedicated to helping you learn how to create this, right? That's why we have our Twitter account, Podcasting Today. That's why we have our Facebook group at educationalpodcasting.tips. That's why we have all of this. It's to help educate others. It's a place where people can come and learn the skills and, most importantly, share those skills, right? So we're looking at building our podcast to share our passions, to build our brand, and to educate others. Maybe you have some ideas of your own. I would love to hear from you. I want to help make this show as interactive as possible. If you're a podcaster out there, please contact the show. You can find me online. Our Twitter account for this show is at Podcasting Today. So check us out on Twitter at Podcasting Today. Of course, you can also find me at TeacherCast on Twitter. We would love to hear from you. You can also go to teachercast.net/contact and fill out the fill out the form, I should say, on the website. And I want to have you as a guest on this show. I want to use this show to feature you, the educational podcaster, educational web designer, educational anything. I want to feature you on this show, and I want to learn what your passions are. I want to learn what your brand is, and I want to learn how you're educating others. Now, you might be saying, but Jeff, I'm listening to this show because I'm a teacher. I don't necessarily want to create this. I see your studio. It's gorgeous, but that's not me. I want to learn how to do this stuff with my students. And you know what? If that's what you're here for, that's also what this show is about. We're going to be sharing with you guys on this channel and throughout TeacherCast how to create podcasts with your students. We're going to talk about ways to do it with audio, ways to do it with video, and ask that question, does a podcast need iTunes? Think about it. It really comes down to asking the question, what is your definition of a podcast? I'm going to leave it at that, and I think that's where we're going to stop on this first episode back. Technically, this is episode 21, I believe, but really, this is the first episode back. I am excited to be here. I'm excited that you're here on the journey. Please reach out to us on Twitter at TeacherCast, at Podcasting Today. Leave us a voicemail over at teachercast.net/voicemail. I want to help you create the podcast of your dreams. I want to help you be, as they say, be all you can be. My name is Jeff Bradbury. I am an instructional technology coach, podcaster, father of 3, and I am here to help you on your journey, my friends. Please check out the shows. Please check out all of the shows on TeacherCast, on YouTube, on iTunes, on Facebook. It is teachercast.net/ you name it, /iTunes, /Facebook, /Twitter, what, it is all right there. We're going to be dealing with a lot of great topics. We want to know what your topics are. Again, please find us. Please connect with us. There's a lot of great stuff here, and this is just the beginning. Also want to give a shout out to our friends at podcast websites, I should say. teachercast.net/PW has all the information there. That is an affiliate link, and if you want me to make an introduction to you guys, I would love to introduce you to our good friends over at Podcast Websites. I will see you for episode 22 next week. We're going to be having another great discussion about podcasting, websites, the whole deal. On behalf of everybody here on the TeacherCast Educational Broadcasting Network, my name is Jeff Bradbury, reminding you to keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.